Hey Professor Homa, welcome to part 2 of Lightbulb AS3. It's the one where we're using ActionScript 3 to actually turn on and off the light bulb and make the switch go up and down. And again, we've used this file before, but we're using ActionScript 3 now. Just one thing just to review from the first part, remember that when we open the file, you just want to check, go to Publish Settings, and just make sure that you're working in ActionScript 3. If you're only seeing 1 and 2 here, you have to make sure you put the Flash player to like 9 or 10. And you could put it to 10 since we're working on CS4. We're on an older version. So Flash Player 10 is fine, and AS3. So make sure you're doing that before you start working here. And also remember we had to give everything instance names, including the movie clips, the light switch, the light bulb, and the buttons, which we didn't have to do in the past. On BTN, we're using _BTN to indicate buttons. You don't have to do that, but that's the practice we're going to use for now. And certain books and tutorials recommend doing that as well. So we're going to do that. So on button, off button. So far, we identified the on button in our action script. Here's the code that we worked on the first time. We stopped our 2 movie clips from looping with these statements. Then we also had this is what's called an event listener, and it uses this add event listener. It sounds like a lot to type, but there's some helpers that'll help us through. The important thing is that we have a function here, and then this is our function. Here's our turn on function. And then all we're going to do now is do our turn off function. And you could do this different ways. You can put the 2 event listeners together and put the 2 functions together, or you can copy this whole thing and put it after. It shouldn't really matter. Eventually, the more you do it, you'll find a way that works best. And I'm just going to copy and paste this, and I'm going to change this here to off, because remember we have an off button, and we're going to give it a different function name, and we'll just call it turn off. And then over here we have to make sure that this function matches up with this function name, or we'll get errors if that doesn't match up. And same thing, off button, add event listener, it's a mouse event, and when we click on it, it's going to run this function. The function that's going to happen is it's going to make light bulb go to frame 2, and it's going to make light switch go to frame 2. Except that was turning it on. If we want to turn it back off, we just change these things back to 1. And there we have our 2 functions and our 2 event listeners. Like I said, you can put your event listeners together. A lot of times you'll see them all together. So you have all your event listeners and then all your functions following that. So they just kind of match up from here to here. Turn off to turn off. So we have 2 functions running, one from the on button, one from the off button. We'll test it out. I'll do control test movie, and I'll go on the on button, and it turns the button on. I'll go to the off button, turns the button off, and so that exactly what we want to happen. And also just a little review of these invisible buttons. These are not buttons that are colored blue and shaded blue, anything like that. They're invisible buttons, and the way they work is if you double click on their timeline, we add a keyframe on the hit state, and then we actually delete content from the up state. So normally we just draw a rectangle, we go and add a keyframe at the hit state and delete the up state, and it leaves only a hit state, meaning it only has a area that you'll know to click on, but it won't be viewable. It'll be viewable in Flash by these little blue rectangles, but when you test your movie, just like I'll do one more time, when you test your movie, you'll see that little hover mouse button go over it, indicating that those are buttons, and there it turns on, there it turns off. So that's ActionScript 3.